Hello, work life warriors. I hope you're doing well. Today, I wanted to stop past and read a poem to you. In addition to my weekly book, I like to read some poetry, but this book that I'm reading this week, Rebels and Devils, it actually has some poetry in it, and I found one of the poems extremely intriguing, and I want to read it to you. It is by Adam Matza. It says, "We were an experiment gone awry. We were the results of the acid test. When mom, in some way gone dead, did the nasty. And 9 months later, popped this regional generation. And once upon this wet spot on a speck of dust, we rage against each other for control. The upper hand. Wasn't it a mega blast? When we pulled off some undetected manipulation? And wasn't it a show of great strength when we got caught and didn't give a shit? Divorced from the feeling, we were like bumper cars. It wasn't cool to reveal and share or care unless, of course, it was to look good. It was the look good in thing to do, or if there was money to be made doing it. And as we quickly aged, aided by the implants of the experiment, our music video attention spans dwindled. You see, we knew what was wrong, but we let it slide because we didn't think we can change anything, but we'd rather hide. And when our time came to stand, we got back slapped down by the invisible hand. I sometimes wonder how I still survived. But when I think of what we could have been and should have been, I wonder if we were ever alive. And it's called Our Potential Legacy. And so I thought that this poem was very interesting. There were several lines throughout the poem that struck me. One was, "We were an experiment gone awry," because depending on what you believe, each creation story has its own version of how we got here. And the story of Adam Eve says that we were created, but we were imperfect and we made some mistakes and we were kicked out the Garden of Eden. So this kind of supports the idea that we were an experiment gone awry. There's many other explanations or creation stories out there, but all of them tends to be a story of falling from grace. And so I just think that that's so interesting, because when you think of your internal story, the most depressed you are is when you fall from grace within yourself, when you start to victimize yourself and demonize other people and villainize other people, and when you start to talk down to yourself and have a lot of negativity going on inside your brain, is what I would view as going awry, because that is the standard state of the world that we live in. Most people are very miserable, which I take as a sign of going awry, because if you are happily internally, then you wouldn't exude externally misery. So I just thought that was so interesting, that I do believe, like, as an experiment, we both have, or every person has the option to either go awry or come into themselves. And in society, most people have gone awry. So very interesting. When moms, in some way gone dads, did the nasty, and 9 months later we pop this regional generation. That's so funny, because we all know that most people are here as an accident. We are not planned. Some people are planned. The parents wanted to have a baby. They were ready for a baby. They planned for a baby. But most people, it was kind of an accident, or not an accident. They weren't planning against not having a baby, but they weren't planning to have a baby. And so I just think that that's so interesting, and plays into this idea that I talk about, reconciling that you are born, because no one comes to ask your permission of whether you want to be born. You're born against your will, but you have to choose to stay here. You have to choose to want to be here. You have to reconcile that you were born and this is an experience that you're having. It's a solar experience, and you have to choose it and want to enjoy it and want to make the best of it and want to improve the quality of it, because we're all here, from an experience that went awry. Most of us, anyway. So I thought it was cool when he says, it wasn't cool to reveal and share or care unless, of course, it was the look good in thing to do, or if there was money to be made doing it. I think that that's so interesting now that people value more extrinsic motivation than intrinsic motivation, and people don't know why they do things or what they value. They just know that they want to be liked, and they will do what it takes to be liked. And so I just think that that's so funny that even if you're, in pain and you really need to release your pain, you won't do so unless it's deemed acceptable. That you will rather self-destruct before you are viewed as a pariah in society, before you say the wrong things, before the court of public opinion convicts you. So I just think it's so interesting that you have the choice on whether to choose integrity to yourself or to choose to fit in and belong. And most people will fit in and will choose to fit in and belong, and will only do the right thing if it's deemed cool, or the right thing for them if it's deemed cool or acceptable in the moment. Another thing that I thought was very interesting is the point where he said, you see, we knew what was wrong and we let it slide. I see this a lot, and as far as when I was an employee, a lot of times people would let things slide because they don't want to rock the boat, but then it would turn around and bite them, and then they would just be so upset, but they didn't set expectation, or they didn't set the boundary, and they expected for the other person to know. And when their needs were not met, they still did not vocalize. It's just, again, we go back to, we choose to conform and we pick the safety of the group, and sometimes, most times, it's against our best interests. So it's better for us to stand against the grain if it means to meet and serve our needs. And so I just thought that was interesting, because letting it slide doesn't make it go away. It comes back stronger, and it will keep coming back until you decide to set your boundaries. Because we didn't think anything could change, we rather hide. That reminds me of, like, I went to the Martin Luther King Museum in Atlanta, and as I was walking, they had like bricks on the ground with quotes from different people, and it was a quote from someone, and it was a European American, and she said in the quote that she felt very powerless in trying to help African Americans get equal rights in America. She felt powerless to do anything, and a lot of people feel powerless to do anything, even though they don't necessarily agree. So when we say that if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem, most people don't want to be the part of the problem. They just don't know how to be a part of the solution. They just feel powerless in thinking that anything they could do would change the situation. So I just thought that was very interesting. And it says, we stand, our time came to stand. We got slapped back down by the invisible hand. I sometimes wonder how I still survive, but when I think of what we could have been and should have been, I wonder if we're alive. So that is very interesting, because, I mean, we've all been hearing for such a long time that the middle class is shrinking. So who is the invisible hand really working for? It can't work for the people who's putting the most work in. And so I can see how they feel that they are constantly being slapped down by the invisible hand. And what I thoroughly enjoyed about it is when it says, I think of what we could have been, because I think about all of the scientific breakthroughs that we had from, modernity, basically technologically advancement or technological advancement, and what we've done with it. When I think about like the bomb and what could have been done with that, and just the technologies that we use and the ways in which we use them, if we were more evolved mentally, spiritually, emotionally, what would we have done with the technology? And when you think about what we're doing now as far as how it affects the planet, how it affects people, the whole ecosystem, it just makes me wonder, like, what we could have been. I have to mourn a little bit, because I feel like, had we used those advancements differently, we could be much more evolved as a human race. But it is what it is. And you just have to mourn the possibilities and reconcile what is happening now and do your part into moving it towards something that is beneficial for all. And then when it says, and what we should have been, and I wonder if we're alive now, that is the part that was just like, poof, because all of the incivility in the world and how we mistreat each other and how we show up, it makes me wonder, are we really alive? And I would say that we're not. Most people are just existing. They're not alive. They feel numb and dead inside. They get up and they go through a monotonous routine. They do the same things every day. They're around the same people. Nothing exciting happens. Nothing challenging happens. So yes, I would say that we are not alive. We are dead inside, and it is our job to wake up, to awaken, to choose living over existing, because you are here. And until you reconcile being here and pick a purpose and pursue your purpose, you are just existing. And in that state, hurt people, or numb people hurt people, because you can't feel what it's like to feel hurt. And so it's all of our responsibility to try to wake each other up, to wake up ourselves up, and to be global, responsible citizens, to be each other's brothers keepers, to add light, positivity, joy, and all the things in the world that you wish you had, be it and add it to the world. So I hope that helps. Have a great day.